so glad that you're here because if you are planning on hiking the South Kaibab Trail in Grand Canyon National Park, there are some definite things that you need to know before you go. This trail is unlike probably any other trail you've ever hiked, and today I want to give you 8 tips for hiking the South Kaibab Trail. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and my website really focuses on hiking through the national parks. I love hiking. It's my favorite thing to do, and I love the Grand Canyon. I love hiking in the Grand Canyon, but the trails in this canyon are beastie trails. They are so hard. They are some of the most dangerous trails in the national parks. It's something that you'll definitely want to pay attention to, because it's going to feel different even if you are an avid hiker. So let's talk about my 8 tips for hiking the South Kaibab Trail in the Grand Canyon. This is my favorite trail in the Grand Canyon. I absolutely love this one, but it is very difficult and very dangerous. So here are my tips for hiking the South Kaibab Trail. Number 1, bring trekking poles. The South Kaibab Trail is the quickest way to the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. And so it is very steep. It drops about 4,800 feet of elevation over 7 miles, which is very extreme even for the Grand Canyon. So you will be going down, down, down a lot. And I just find that using the trekking poles helps take a lot of the weight off my knees. This is the biggest complaint that people have usually when they hike this trail. Beyond just the, it's hot and it's long and all that, but it's that their knees really start to hurt because you're just going down so quickly. And so those trekking poles will really help with all of that pressure that will be on your knees as you're making your way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So if you're not used to using trekking poles, or it's not something that you usually do when you're hiking, I would just encourage you to look into them for this Grand Canyon hike, because it definitely makes a huge difference on how your body feels as you're going down the South Kaibab Trail. Tip number 2, you have to take one of the free park shuttles to get to the trailhead for the South Kaibab Trail. So the Grand Canyon has a really extensive shuttle system. It's free. But what a lot of people don't realize when they're planning their trips to the Grand Canyon is that the South Kaibab Trailhead is actually one of those areas in the park where you have to take the shuttle. You cannot drive your own car. There are other areas in Grand Canyon where the shuttle is just if you want to. It's not mandatory, but this is not one of those areas. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to catch the Kaibab route. This is the orange shuttle. And you're going to take it from, typically people take it from the visitor center out to the South Kaibab Trailhead, which means that you'll want to jump on the eastbound route from the visitor center of that orange shuttle. Don't get on the westbound, it will take you the wrong direction. Eastbound from the visitor center on that orange shuttle. So taking a look here at the Grand Canyon website, you will see that they do have information on this route. It tells you what time it starts running, where to pick it up. It gives you the map of where it goes. So as I was saying, if you're picking it up from the visitor center, you can see there's 2 different stops. There's the westbound and the eastbound. If you take westbound, it will take you out here and it will just take you back to the visitor center. So get on the eastbound and it will take you straight to the South Kaibab Trailhead. Now, beyond that free orange shuttle, what a lot of people don't realize is the Grand Canyon actually runs what's called the Hikers Express shuttle. And this shuttle runs really early in the morning, earlier than that orange route typically does. And it takes you to the South Kaibab Trailhead. So that's a really great option if you're wanting to get out even earlier than the regular shuttles run. You'll want to catch that express shuttle. So here is the Express Shuttle website. I will link these in my video description below so you can take a look closer. So you can see during the main season, it leaves around 5 or 6 a.m. and it stops, it stops right here. So you can pick it up from a couple of the lodges, you can pick it up from the visitor center, and it takes you to that South Kaibab Trailhead nice and early. And I think that what a lot of people don't realize is that you have to take a shuttle here year round. There is no time of year where you can drive your own car to the South Kaibab Trailhead. So just plan on taking the shuttle. Make sure that you're getting a nice early start. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But just know that you will need to pack everything in your bag that you'll need for your hike and take the shuttle over to the trailhead. Tip number 3 for hiking the South Kaibab Trail is that you need to bring lots of water, even more water than you think you need. You will need a lot of water because there is no water along this trail. You will find water at the trailhead, so you can fill up there, but then there's no more water until you get to the Colorado River at the very bottom. And so you are essentially hiking this full 7 miles down into the canyon with only the water that you bring for yourself. The National Park Service actually recommends you bring about 4 liters of water per person when hiking the South Kaibab Trail. So that's a ton of water, I know, but the conditions out on this trail are very unforgiving. It gets extremely hot. It can be very dangerous. Most people don't bring enough water, and that can get you into a ton of trouble on this trail. Now, the nice thing is, again, that this trail is mostly downhill, and so you may not drink as much water because you're not exerting as much energy trying to get yourself out of the canyon. But if you are going just down to a stopping point and coming back out on the South Kaibab Trail, you will absolutely want those 4 liters of water, because as you're hiking back out, it is extremely strenuous and very, very difficult, and water is the most important thing you can have with you at that point. If you are just going down the South Kaibab Trail, if you're not day hiking it, you're going to stay down in the canyon, maybe at the Bright Angel Campground or at Phantom Ranch, then you can filter your water when you get down there. So bring enough water to get you down to the bottom, and then make sure you have a good filter so that you can filter your water into your bottles as you're down at the bottom and also as you're trying to hike your way back out. I mentioned bringing a water filter, and I absolutely would always have a water filter with you regardless of how far you are planning on hiking this trail. They have been having a lot of pipeline breaks at the Grand Canyon these past few years. They bring the water from the Colorado River up to the rim, and that's how they get water up there. And so the pipelines that have been bringing that water up have been breaking, and they've been having a lot of issues with that. And so even if a trail says that it has water along the way, like the Bright Angel Trail, which is another trail that you can take to get down into the canyon, a lot of times it actually doesn't because of these pipeline breaks. So there is a chance that you would get along the trail, or you'd get to the South Kaibab Trailhead and the water is not working there. So always bring a filter and always bring more water than you think you'll need. Tip number 4, expect mules along this trail. Why is this a tip? Because it kind of changes your enjoyment of the trail. It's better to know going into this trail what to expect as far as the mules go, so that you're not surprised. Really the only problem that I have with hiking the South Kaibab Trail and the other corridor trails in the Grand Canyon is that they do allow mules on a lot of these trails, and it can make for a very unpleasant aroma. It can make for big puddles of mule pee on the trail that you're having to dodge and walk around. Lots of poop, all of that. You should expect to see that on the South Kaibab Trail as you hike. The other reason it's important to be aware that mules use this trail is because they will likely be passing you as you're hiking on this trail. They're probably faster than you. I know they are much faster than me. So when you see the mules on the trail, if they're trying to pass you, then you're going to want to get off to the side, the hillside, not the canyon edge side, and quietly wait. Follow any directions from the wrangler who's bringing the mules through, and just make sure that they are able to pass safely. So keep that in mind. I just like to know that there's going to be some gross stuff on this trail before I hike it. And I thought I would pass that tip along to you as well. Tip number 5 is do not hike further along the South Kaibab Trail than you can come back. So this is the biggest problem, I think, at the Grand Canyon, is that people will hike down further than they can come back up. When you're going down, it's very deceiving. You feel pretty good. You're like, oh yeah, I'm doing okay. I can do this. And you tend to go further than you would normally go if you were going uphill first. So when you're hiking downhill first, make sure that you don't go any further than you know that you can get yourself back up out of the canyon, because coming back out is much, much harder. It takes a lot more time, effort, energy. People usually don't expect it to be as difficult getting out as it is, and it's very misleading when you hike downhill first and then you do your uphill on the way out. Grand Canyon trails are some of the most dangerous trails in America, and this is mainly why. Most people just don't pay attention and they hike too far. So a few places that I recommend going on the South Kaibab Trail are Point. That is a really good shorter trip down into the canyon along the South Kaibab Trail. You get to go down the cool switchbacks at the beginning of the trail. You get to hike for a minute, and then you get to this really nice vista point where you can enjoy the canyon views. The trail to Point is 1.8 miles round trip. You're losing about a little over 700 feet of elevation still. And so as you can imagine, 1.8 miles, that's not a very long trail. And 700 feet of elevation is quite a bit of elevation. And so this is by no means an easy hike, but it is one of the easiest ways to hike the South Kaibab Trail for a minute and get a taste of what this trail is like. If you want to go a little bit longer, you can continue on to Cedar Ridge. Cedar Ridge is about 3 miles round trip and has 1,120 feet of elevation loss. So again, quite steep, but when you get out to Cedar Ridge, it's really beautiful. You have 360-degree views of the canyon. You do stay along the ridgeline as you're going out this way, and so just the views are epic. The trail is really cool. You will feel like you are just having a grand adventure in these 3 miles. So it's really a great stopping point. In fact, Grand Canyon actually wants you to turn around at Cedar Ridge if it's during the summer, especially. That's the furthest they want you to day hike safely. So that is a really good spot to get to, and then you turn around, work your way out. It is difficult coming back out, but it's doable for a lot of people. If you are not visiting the Grand Canyon in the summer, if you're coming during the off season and you want to hike a little bit further, then the furthest that the national park recommends you go is to Skeleton Point, which is 6 miles round trip. So that one's a little bit further. You'll drop down, you'll get to see some new things. It's very beautiful, but you are losing about 2,000 feet of elevation if you go down to Skeleton Point. So again, keep that in mind. I've hiked the whole trail. I love this trail. It is my favorite trail in the Grand Canyon. And so no matter how far you go, you will be treated to just spectacular views. The landscape changes as you're hiking this trail because you're staying kind of on top of the ridge lines. And so it really takes you out into the canyon and gives you such a cool scope of how huge this canyon actually is. I have a full trail guide for the South Kaibab Trail to Cedar Ridge because that is where most people should stop, that I can walk you through on dirtinmyshoes.com. I will link this in the video description so you can read through it and take a look at what the trail actually looks like as you're going along this section of the South Kaibab Trail. So going along with that, tip number 6 is that there is very little shade on the South Kaibab Trail. So I mentioned before that you are mostly staying on top of the ridge lines. So you have these steep descents down the ridges. There's very little vegetation. And so you will be exposed to the elements on this trail. Just expect that. So that includes the heat, that includes not finding any shade. There is a couple sections where there are a few trees, but not much. When you get to Cedar Ridge, there are a couple trees, but mostly you will be exposed to the sun as you're hiking this trail. Tip number 7, don't hike the South Kaibab Trail between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So this trail, along the same lines as tip number 6, it gets really, really hot because there's very little shade, and it can be very dangerous to be out here during the main hours of the day. So what a lot of people also don't realize is that as you're hiking down into the Grand Canyon, it's going to get hotter. So it might be a really nice temperature up at the rim or at the trailhead. You might be feeling pretty good, but you will feel that temperature just climb as you get deeper and deeper into the canyon. So it's not uncommon. In fact, the last time I hiked this trail, it was about 60 degrees on the rim. It felt really good. It was perfect. By the time we got down to the river at it was like 9 a.m. It was still pretty early in the morning. It was around 92 degrees. So that's, about a 30-degree temperature swing between the top of the rim and the bottom. And a lot of people just don't realize that that's how it is at the Grand Canyon. So to my point, you don't want to be hiking this trail in the middle of the day. It is extremely dangerous to do that. So what you're going to want to do is either start really early in the morning. You get up with the sun, sometimes even before. We've hiked with our headlamps before, starting before the sun, just so that we can get on the trail and down into the hotter part of the canyon before it gets too hot. The National Park Service actually wants you to get to the bottom of the canyon by 10 a.m. during the summer. And so it's going to typically it takes people about 3 to 4 hours-ish to get down to the bottom at a normal hiking speed. And so you're going to be wanting to start your hike at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sometime in there to make it down to the bottom of the canyon before those really hot temperatures come. Now, if you're not hiking to the bottom of the canyon, if you're just going to day hike, then the same rule still applies. So especially coming back out, you're not going to be wanting to hike out of the Grand Canyon during the middle of the day. It's going to be miserable. And so make sure you're getting an early enough start. If you start around, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., you can usually get to Cedar Ridge around 8:30-ish, and then you can make your way back out before that 10 a.m. time. And so I highly recommend doing that just because it does get really hot and miserable on this trail. And tip number 8, something that you might not realize because this is a little bit different than some of the other corridor trails or these trails that go down into the Grand Canyon, is that the South Kaibab Trail does not have any camping options along its route. And so once you start this trail, if you're planning on camping or staying overnight, you have to make it all the way to the bottom to do that. So the Bright Angel Campground is down there, Phantom Ranch is down there. Those are typically the 2 places that people will stay if they're hiking the South Kaibab Trail down into the Grand Canyon. But those really are your only options unless you catch another trail and start hiking along somewhere else and then camping along that trail. So the South Kaibab Trail really is just for speed to get you to the bottom as quickly as possible. That's what it was designed to do. You're not going to do a lot of dilly-dallying along this trail. Again, there's not water along the way. You won't hit water until you get to the very bottom. There's not very much shade, and so there's not like a lot of great places to rest. And so again, if you're starting this trail and you're planning on just day hiking, then you'll want to turn around at a good spot like Cedar Ridge or Ooh-Ah Point. If you're hiking all the way to the bottom, you've got to make it to the bottom if you plan on spending the night. There are plenty of videos here on YouTube that will show you the actual route through the canyon, but I wanted to make sure that you were completely prepared to actually hike this trail safely. So again, they do search and rescues on this trail a lot. There are a lot of people who start who just have no business being on this trail because they didn't come prepared. So that's my main goal for this video, is to make sure you know exactly what to expect so that you can have a fun, safe experience along the South Kaibab Trail in Grand Canyon National Park. If you need any help planning out your Grand Canyon itinerary, if you want to know the times, when to be where, how to avoid the crowds, how to enjoy trails like the South Kaibab Trail, then check out the Grand Canyon itinerary that I have on dirtandmyshoes.com. I will walk you through everything. I will make sure that you have a great vacation to Grand Canyon National Park. And if you're still planning your Grand Canyon vacation, be sure to check out my other videos about the Grand Canyon here on the Dirt in My Shoes channel. I also have a podcast, the Exploring the National Parks podcast, where we talk about the Grand Canyon there as well. And you can find some really great episodes as far as getting information on what we like to do and what restaurants we like to eat in and all of that. So be sure to check those out. And I just hope that you have a fantastic time at Grand Canyon National Park.